A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. The two disciples recounted what had taken place on the way and how Jesus was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. While they were still speaking about this, he stood in their midst and said to them, "Peace be with you." But they were startled and terrified and thought that they were seeing a ghost. Then he said to them, "Why are you troubled? And why do questions arise in your hearts? Look at my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Touch me and see, because a ghost does not have flesh and bones, as you can see I have." As he said this, he showed them his hands and his feet. While they were still incredulous for joy and were amazed, he asked them, "Have you anything here to eat?" They gave him a piece of baked fish. He took it and ate it in front of them. He said to them, "These are my words that I have spoken to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled." Then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures. And as he said to them, "Thus it is written that the Christ would suffer and rise from the dead on the third day, and that repentance for the forgiveness of sins would be preached in his name to all of the nations, beginning from Jerusalem. You are my witnesses of these things." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
What do you think Jesus' favorite thing was to do with his disciples? Michael or Giancarlo, do you have any idea? You have no idea. Yes? You can say it, Mom, if you can't. Anybody else have an idea? Eat? Somebody said eat. That's it. You got it. Sermon's over. Jesus loved to get together with his disciples, his friends, his apostles, his followers, and get together and eat, because that's where you share a bond. You know, you together with your family. During this pandemic, we couldn't get together with our cousins and our aunts and uncles and grandparents or whoever. And so it was kind of sad. We couldn't go out to dinner with friends, and so it was kind of sad because Jesus gives us the example of eating together, which makes it important. Now, what do you think Jesus' favorite foods were? There's more than one, obviously, but yes. Apples, maybe. Bread, good answer. Anybody else? Fish. If you ever go on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, they have a fish that they serve you called St. Peter's fish. And most of the people on the pilgrimage that I went on didn't like it, because if you've ever been overseas and had fish, here in the States, we cleaned it up very nicely, and but in the overseas, even in Europe or Asia, when they serve you fish, they serve it with the head on and the eyes looking up at you. And most of the Americans go, "Oh, I can't," even though the fish is the same. It tasted very good. It was grilled on an open fire. St. Peter's fish. And Jesus used to eat a lot of fish because the Sea of Galilee was there. He used to get together with his friends, his disciples, his followers, eat fish, drink a little wine, and talk about things. And even in today's gospel, today's great gospel, it happens right after the gospel of Jesus meeting the disciples on the way to Emmaus. I'm sure you remember that gospel. They were walking. These two disciples were kind of despondent because Jesus had been put to death and now they couldn't find his body. And then Jesus appears to them. and starts talking to them. And for some reason, they don't recognize him. They don't recognize him because they can't believe that that would be Jesus risen from the dead. And then when they stopped for the evening and they begged him to stay, and Jesus took the bread and the wine, they realized it was Jesus. They realized it was Jesus because of the meal that they were sharing with him. And Jesus says, and then he disappeared. And Jesus reminds the gospel, in today's gospel, says, that was me. I'm not a ghost. I was going to tell you a story about friends of mine that are ghost hunters, but I didn't think with the two young men here making their first communion, I didn't want to scare them, but I asked Michael, he didn't know. Giancarlo, do you know who, probably you're too young, did you ever watch Harry Potter? You heard of it, yeah. Who's the ghost girl in Harry Potter? Moaning Myrtle. There are even ghosts in movies and in books. People who appear, but ghosts are people who have already died, have passed away. Jesus wasn't dead. Jesus was alive, and he shared that meal with them. And every time we share this meal at the Eucharist, at the table of the Lord, every time we eat together with our family, or if we get together with friends now, or whoever, we say, what do we do at the beginning of a meal? We say grace. We thank God for what we're about to receive, but we also remember that Jesus is there with us. And then when that's all finished, we don't just go home. We don't just go home from Mass. We do go home from Mass, but we take Jesus with us. We take Jesus with us, and as he says to his disciples in today's gospel, you are my witnesses. You must be witnesses to what we have done together, to the Eucharist that we've shared, to the meal that we've eaten together. When you leave from your table at home and you say, thanks be to God for this food, you're witnesses to the love that you share in your family, or to the love that Jesus shares with us. So all of you, especially Michael and Giancarlo, but all of us, every time we receive the Eucharist, we must leave here being witnesses to the risen Lord, being witnesses to this Jesus who is present in our lives.